The year is 1967, and we're taken to a school in Paterson, New Jersey called East Side High School. There's a teacher there named Joe Clark. He's not like the others. The way he teaches, the way he talks to students, everything about him is different. The students genuinely like him. One day, while Joe is teaching his class, someone comes in and tells him that a meeting is being held without him. The suggestions he had previously given are not even being considered. That makes Joe angry, so he heads straight to the meeting. Once there, he speaks up and says that they should be thinking about what's best for the students. But no one listens to him. No one pays attention to his ideas or his concerns. Joe raises his voice against the administration, and because of that, he is removed from the school and transferred somewhere else. Furious, he leaves. 20 years pass. 2 decades later, East Side High School, which used to be the #1 school and an example for others, has completely fallen apart. The school is now corrupt. Students are involved in drugs, gangs have formed inside the school, teachers are attacked, and most students are unable to pass their tests. The failure rate is extremely high. The school is now considered the most violent in the area. The mayor calls for a meeting and invites Frank and the school's lawyer. They learn that if 75% of the students do not pass with basic skills, the school will be taken over by the state administration, something the mayor absolutely does not want. But realistically, it seems almost impossible for 75% of the students to pass with basic skills. Frank, who used to be Joe's friend, tells the mayor that they need to bring Joe back and make him the principal. The mayor does not want to do that, but he has no other option, so he agrees to hire Joe as the new principal. Frank goes to Joe and tells him about the offer, saying they want him to become the principal of East Side High. Joe refuses clearly and directly. He says he knows exactly what condition the school is in, and he believes the mayor is the reason for it. The mayor wants to save himself, not the students. Joe reminds him that 20 years ago he had said the school budget needed to be increased and more attention should be given to the students, but no one listened. Instead, he was pushed out and transferred. Now he does not want to return. Later, however, Joe realizes that the school needs him, the students need him, so he decides to go back and accepts the position as principal. After returning, he holds a meeting with the teachers. In that meeting, he makes it clear that no one will speak except him. He tells all the teachers to prepare a list of every student involved in corruption, drugs, violence, or any kind of misconduct. He also says that if action is taken against those students, no teacher or staff member is allowed to help them. Soon, all those students are called into the assembly hall. These are the most aggressive students, the ones involved in drugs and constant trouble. When Joe walks in, he sees that no one respects his presence. Some students are standing on the stage, some are using drugs openly, others are shouting and cursing. Joe is completely shocked. 20 years ago, this school was the finest in the area. Now it has become the most notorious one. After that, Joe begins speaking into the microphone. The auditorium is filled with students, but the ones involved in crime and drugs are still up on the stage, continuing to disrupt him. Joe calls for security and has all of those students escorted out of the school. Then he turns to the students who were seated and tells them that from now on, no one will harass them. They need to focus on their education. If they want to leave, they are free to go, but they need to seriously think about what options they have in life outside of school and education. His words connect with many of them. Soon, the parents of the expelled students arrive. Among them is a woman named Leona, who strongly opposes Joe's actions, but Joe stands firm. He says he expelled 300 students because he cannot allow those 300 to destroy the future of the remaining 3,000. He wants to give the majority a real chance at a better life and a better future. After saying that, he walks away. Except for Leona, most of the parents are impressed by what he says. The next morning, a student approaches Joe. The boy says, "You expelled me, but I didn't do anything wrong." Joe already knows that the boy uses drugs, so he takes him up to the rooftop. There, Joe tells him that he might be able to lie to him, but he cannot lie to himself. If he wants to destroy his life with drugs, then he might as well jump off the roof instead of slowly killing himself. The message hits the boy hard. He understands what Joe is trying to say and asks for one more chance. Joe gives him that chance, but warns him clearly that if he makes even one more mistake, he will be expelled for good. As Joe continues inspecting the school, he notices that many students are not dressed properly. He tells everyone that they need to come to school dressed appropriately. At one point, he sees a few boys harassing girls in the hallway. He immediately pulls 3 of them aside and tells them they must learn discipline. He orders them to recite the school prayer. One of those 3 boys is the same overweight student he had just given a second chance to. While reciting the prayer, the boy starts laughing. Joe instantly hits him on the head with a file and explains to everyone that during prayer, no one moves and no one disrespects the moment. Just then, an English teacher bends down to pick up a paper from the floor. Joe becomes furious at what he sees as a lack of discipline and suspends him on the spot. He also realizes that none of the students even remember the school prayer properly. He warns them that if they do not memorize it correctly, they should be prepared to face serious consequences. Later, Joe confronts the music teacher. He had clearly instructed that no student would participate in the upcoming event because his only priority is making sure 75% of the students pass their exams. But the music teacher ignored his orders. As a result, he fires him as well. Joe is determined to restore discipline and academic focus to the school the way it was 20 years ago. Because Joe suspended the English teacher, the school's vice principal, Joan, comes to speak with him. She explains that the English teacher is not only a great teacher, but also an excellent coach, and the students truly need him. She tells Joe that firing him is not the right decision, but Joe refuses to listen. He wants to run the school his way. Finally, the day of the exams arrives. Security is tight. Students are closely monitored. Joe himself walks around, personally supervising to make sure no one cheats. The exams end, and now everyone waits for the results. One day, the same student whom Joe had expelled earlier shows up at the school again, in the school cafeteria, and starts beating another student. When Joe finds out, he rushes there immediately. The boy has a knife in his hand. He even tries to attack Joe, but Joe blocks the attack and throws a punch that knocks him straight to the floor. Security quickly grabs the boy and restrains him. Joe demands to know how he got inside the building.
Security tells him someone must have let him in. After that incident, Joe orders all the school doors to be chained and locked. The next day, a newspaper runs a story claiming that Joe has lost his mind. It says he got into a fight with a former student. When Leona reads the article, the same woman whose son was expelled, she goes straight to the school committee and files a complaint against Joe. Soon after, Joe's old friend Frank comes to talk to him. He tells Joe that he cannot keep operating this way. He cannot just fire teachers whenever he wants. A lot of people are now against him. Leona is building a group of supporters, and even the fire chief is on her side. Frank warns him that if he does not control his actions, he could lose his job. That conversation makes Joe realize he may have gone too far. He decides to bring the teachers back. He writes a formal apology and reinstates both the English teacher and the music teacher. The following day, the fire chief arrives at the school with members of the press, but Joe stands at the entrance holding a baseball bat and tells them to leave. The vice principal, Joan, strongly disapproves of his behavior. She tries to reason with him, but once again, he refuses to listen. Later, while making his rounds, Joe notices a few students wandering around. He stops them and tells them they must recite the school prayer or face punishment. They cannot just roam the halls. The students begin reciting a prayer, but Joe quickly realizes it is not the original school prayer. He asks who changed it. The students tell him that Miss Powers did. Joe goes directly to Miss Powers and demands to know why she changed it. She calmly replies that the old one was boring. To everyone's surprise, Joe smiles and says the new prayer is actually very good. Around the same time, the exam results finally arrive. 75% of the students were supposed to pass, but only 33% make it. Joe is deeply disappointed. He calls a meeting with all the teachers and tells them that they are all being blamed for the poor results. He says they must work harder. They need to add extra classes and communicate more with parents. The teachers once again commit themselves to helping the students improve for the next round of exams. Joe continues putting in relentless effort, and slowly the students begin to respect him and even like him. On the other side, Leona's influence keeps growing. She gains strong public support and goes directly to the mayor. She demands that Joe be removed as principal. Frank and others who support Joe try to convince the mayor not to take that step, but the mayor dismisses them from his office. He then sits down with Leona and reaches a private agreement with her. Under that agreement, the mayor tells Leona that he needs public support in the upcoming election. If she can help him gain that support, he will remove Joe from his position as principal. After that meeting, the mayor goes into a restroom and speaks privately with one of his men. He says that Joe has put chains on the school gates, and once the exams are over, they will go to the school and have him arrested for that. Sitting inside the same restroom is another man who supports Joe. He overhears everything. The next day, he goes straight to the school and informs Joe about the mayor's plan to arrest him after the exams. After hearing this, Joe calls in his security team. He tells them that if anyone comes to inspect the school or ask questions, they are to speak in code. Once that code word is used, they must immediately remove all the chains from the school gates. In reality, Joe had locked the students inside the school building for their own safety and focus, and he had already taken permission from their parents. But now the mayor wants to use that very decision as a reason to arrest him. The vice principal comes to Joe to discuss some important matters, but he is too busy and does not give her the attention she deserves. He tells her she is capable of making decisions on her own. That response does not sit well with her. After school ends, she approaches him again and tells him directly that he is being egotistical. She says that he acts as if he is the only one trying to save the school and the students. The rest of them care too. They also want to give these kids a better future. But because he doesn't communicate properly, people are turning against him. Many now want him gone. Finally, the day of the final test arrives. Before the exam begins, Joe gathers all the students in the assembly hall. Before giving his speech, he hands his resignation letter to the vice principal. Then he addresses the students. He tells them that the entire city doubts them and speaks badly about their school. No one believes in them, but he believes in every one of them. He says that only those who dare to swim are the ones who risk drowning, and after drowning, they fight their way back up through effort. Anyone who falls has the right to stand up again. Those who fall and refuse to rise never achieve anything in life. Now he tells them this is their chance. They must prove that they are not losers. They are special. They are capable of success. He also thanks the teachers, saying they stood by him and supported him, and he is deeply grateful to all of them, especially the vice principal. After that, the entire school sings the school prayer together, "Lean on Me," the same words that give the film its title. As they sing, you can see confidence in the students' eyes and in their hearts.
Then the final exam begins. However, a special committee is present to oversee the testing. The fire chief arrives as well, along with police officers. Earlier, when Joe had instructed his staff to remove the chains if any inspection took place, that conversation had been secretly recorded. Because of that recording, Joe is arrested. When the students learn about his arrest, they gather outside the jail and begin chanting in his support. The mayor goes to meet Joe and tells him that he needs to ask the students to go back home. The mayor has now realized that Joe has the full support of the students. Joe steps outside. He knows the students' protest comes from loyalty and belief, and in many ways, he knows they are standing up for what is right. But for their safety, he tells them to go back home. By now, the students no longer see him as just their principal or teacher. They see him as a father figure. Joe tells them that it is important not only to follow school rules, but also to learn how to respect the law itself. At that moment, someone hands him an envelope. When he opens it, he finds the official results. The school has achieved a 75% pass rate. They did it. The school will not be shut down. The letter also states that the school staff will not be replaced and that Joe will remain the principal. He did not just change the students' behavior or mindset, he transformed the entire image of the school. He proved that discipline, belief, and commitment could turn things around. He accomplished what he set out to do. After that, Joe tells the mayor to take his politics elsewhere. Then, standing together with the students, he sings the same prayer once again, "Lean on Me." In the final moments, Joe is seen handing diplomas to the students after they pass their exams. Hopefully, you found this powerful true story inspiring.